Hi, I'm John. This is my show, An American Scheme, where I'm proving that Diana Ross is Michael Jackson's actual mother. So I have all kinds of videos that I have saved and stuff. So I'm gonna put this video together with I'm gonna use a couple of the pieces that I have never shown before and stuff, right? So this is Gladys Knight of Gladys Knight and the Pips, and she was signed under Motown, and she's accredited as being like the first known artist to recognize the Jacksons and contact Motown, okay? But she doesn't know the true story that Michael Jackson was the love child of Diana Ross and Smokey Robinson. So she doesn't actually know that they already know, that Berry Gordy knows who this kid is. Berry Gordy knows who the Jackson family, and he knows who Joe Jackson, he knows all that stuff. So she doesn't know any of that stuff, right? So this is her telling about one of the first, when she first encountered the Jacksons, and then she called Motown and stuff. But what I'm going to show you here is, she says, when the lady says to her, those are Joe's kids, okay? So what I'm pointing out with this here is that Joe's known, okay? Joe is actually known. So when the person says to her, those are Joe's kids, she knows who Joe is, okay? So let me show you this really quick.
Went crazy. I heard them before I saw them. I was in my dressing room, and they were rehearsing for the amateur show at the Regal Theater in Chicago. And I jumped up out of my chair and so I said, "Who is that?" And they said, "Those are Joe's boys." I said, "Really?" And I was I almost fell over the banister because I was trying to see them through the little curtain thing. And they were just amazing. I ran downstairs. I said, "We got to do something. We got to do something." I called the company and I said, "Hey, you got to get Mr. Gordy to come down here and see these guys. They are amazing." That's all we wanted, was to get them noticed, to get them to someone who could make a difference in that extraordinary life of the Jacksons.
Okay, so she's an established artist, you know, and so she tried to make contact with Motown, tried to get the Jacksons, but it did nothing. She didn't have the power to do that. It's one of the things about that, when she did that, nothing came about because of her request. Nothing came about it because she didn't have the power to do it. But later, as they say, Bobby Taylor, and it's like, oh, Bobby Taylor wasn't as big of an artist for Motown, you know. He was a better friend, personal friend with Smokey Robinson, though, and then he actually was discovered too. Bobby Taylor was discovered by the other band, like Mary Wilson of the Supremes. It was something like that she had discovered him and brought him to Motown, where he ended up becoming a really good friends with Smokey Robinson. There's just a lot to the story. When you actually get into the real story, there's a lot to it and stuff, right? But one of the big thing about that I think is really important, first, is she tells you at the Chicago Theater at the Regal, because, and that's another thing, there's a lot of history around that Chicago, in the Regal Theater in Chicago. And I'm going to play this next clip. I'm going to show you something here. So this is Joseph Jackson's actual brother, okay? This is Luther Jackson. Okay, so this is Joe Jackson's brother. And I'm going to show you a little bit here about what's going on. But so what I wanted you to see is that when she was talking about Chicago is right above Gary, Indiana. So Gary, Indiana, you think about it being a small town, but Chicago, Illinois is just right above it. It's not far at all. And in Chicago is the Regal Theater, and also in Chicago is Chess Records. So Chess Records was like the Motown before Motown. If you look at like the big acts that they were, Chess Records was the big one, okay? So here, listen to this a little bit.
But now, I mean, about so far as the music, Daddy, what about when you was a guitar player? You remember you told me you used to be at the small farm, playing with Jimmy Reed, Howlin' Wolf, and all them guys.
Okay, so one thing when he mentions right there, used to be at the small farm, and this is a thing that I've tried to do research on what they're talking about, the small farm, because it's obviously something. I don't know exactly what they're talking about, but it's one of those things, if anybody out there knows the history or what is that I don't know what that is referring to. It's one of those things, because I would think that if I could find out the history of what that small farm, I think there's evidence there. There's stuff that I'd like to know, but I don't actually know exactly what he's talking about. But so he's saying used to be hanging out the small farm with Jimmy Reed and Howlin' Wolf. Okay, so Jimmy Reed and Howlin' Wolf they're both big stars, but they're both artists on the Chess label. Okay, both of those guys are on the Chess label, which is in Chicago. And then I didn't pull up a video here to show you, but Berry Gordy, his sister, who was actually a co-writer for Berry Gordy, Gwen, she married a high-level executive that is part of the Chess Records family. There's like the connections of what's going on. There's just a lot of serious connections with these people over and over and stuff, right? So, but what he was saying too is that, yeah, Joe knew Jimmy Reed and Howlin' Wolf. You know, they used to hang out someplace called the Small Farm. But so there's a thing with Joe Jackson, is what I'm showing you with this too, is that Joe Jackson is much more known than what we understand. The history of what it tells is that people, that nobody knew Joe Jackson. The Jacksons were just like the group he put together from down in Gary, Indiana. That people don't understand that the history of that Joe Jackson has a history prior to the Jacksons signing with Motown. Joe Jackson had a history in the music industry, and he was hanging out with known people, and he was right there under Chicago and hanging out, you know, where the Chess record label's at and the artists there, and there's stuff like that that proves that Joe Jackson was affiliated with those people. And then when you get, like I said, when you get into the real stuff, you see that Chess Records and Motown, like there's a thing too, like I said, if I was going to pull this stuff up, it would take a lot longer and stuff. But the actual first record that the Miracles, when they were made Tamla Records before it's Motown, Tamla Records with Berry Gordy and stuff, they didn't have national distribution for their records. So what you'll see is with the Miracles, you'll see that the Miracles, if you look up on their history, it says Chess Records, that it'll say like record companies that Miracles were signed to, and you would think, oh, it's just Motown, but it's not. Chess Records is in there, and the reason is because Berry Gordy, like I said, they had a connection with Chess Records, so they used Chess Records to distribute the Miracles in the very beginning. They were using Chess Records, and I'm saying there's just real big connections with them. And Chess Records is in Chicago, and so that's why when you see like Berry Gordy over in Motown, but you see he's doing business in Chicago at Chess Records, and then Joe Jackson has connections to Chess Records. It's one of these things to show that like Joe Jackson and Berry Gordy, they knew each other. That's how Michael got put into that house. There's a lot more of the history of what's going on there. But now I'm going to show you. Listen to what this girl says. So he's talking about this, right? And then just out of the blue, we're going to listen to what the girl says here.
All right, what Uncle Joseph used to do?
Joe had his man too.
He didn't like Diana Ross.
So just the very first words out of his mouth, okay, he's like, okay, so Joe, what'd Joe do, you know? And so Luther's going to talk, oh yeah, he had his band, he's going to talk about the Falcons, but the girl, the thing that jumps into her mind is, oh, he didn't like Diana Ross. So it's like, so he's talking about Joe Jackson. He's like, Joe Jackson she says he didn't like Diana Ross. So then we're going to watch her because she mumbles it again, like, oh, he didn't like her. Watch her.
You don't like her.
Oh, you talking about like, okay, dog.
He do not like
Who was in that? Do you remember the name?
See
of
right there, he did not like Diana. If you listen to her right there, she mumbles, he did not like Diana. Okay, that's what she mumbled. But it's like, okay, what the hell is that about? Like he did not like Diana Ross. So whatever that was, it had to be he did not like Diana Ross. Because the reality is that Joe took in her abandoned baby. Then what happened is when Diana came back into the scene, Diana started taking control, and she was doing all kinds of weird things with Michael, and she was proclaiming to the world. They would go out on shows, and she would say, this is my child, this is my kid, and she was showing favoritism to him. That's how Joseph ended up being, I don't like Diana Ross, because Diana did a lot for them and stuff, like she did this. I'm going to show you here. So this is Michael Jackson's book, Moonwalk, and there's a lot here, but specifically, like this part here. So this was an important period in my life because Diana loved art and encouraged me to appreciate it too. She took the time to educate me about it. We'd go out almost every day, just the two of us. That's the big part, just the two of us. So Diana Ross, when the Jacksons moved to Los Angeles, they moved into Diana Ross's house. So it's like, where does this hatred for Diana Ross come from Joe Jackson? Because he had to be grateful to her for like a lot of the stuff that she did do. Like they literally were moving in her house. But for some reason, Joe's hating this woman to enough where this girl, it's all she can think about in her mind is, who's she thinking about? Oh, Joe hated Diana Ross, and that must be something that she really knows, because what came out of her mouth? Oh, Joe hated Diana Ross, right? It has to be a really big reason for that. And then, so the Jacksons, The Jackson 5, you know, when you actually, if you hear Diana Ross talk about the first time that she saw the Jackson 5, you'll always hear her say, it was at Berry Gordy's house, at his pool, at the pool house. There's a story there that they talk about. There was a party at Berry Gordy's house at the pool house, something like that, and the Jackson 5 performed there, right? So that's where you'll always hear like Diana and Smokey. That's where they'll say the first time that they saw the Jacksons, right? But that's not true, because listen to this.
Young 15-year-old at home who's a big fan. I have to listen to all the records, and I happen to like the records. It's Diana Ross who kind of did it for you fellas, isn't it?
Yes, she started us off. We did a talent show in Gary, Indiana at Roosevelt High School, and the mayor guest was Diana Ross. She was sitting in the audience, and we did this show, and she liked it very much, and she came backstage and told us how much she liked it, and from there on...
How soon after that were you recording?
Oh, about 3 weeks.
Okay, so he says they were doing, there's a show, and see, there's even like more to this stuff too, but Michael Jackson just told you that Diana Ross was in Gary, Indiana. Okay? She's in Gary, Indiana at the Roosevelt High School. And it's like, geez. So Diana Ross, and there was a show there because there was a mayor, there was some kind of political show. There's a political rally is what that show is. See, there could be two different shows too. I get confused because there's a lot more to this stuff than because this one he says is at the Roosevelt High School, but there's also another political show, and I get confused too because it's hard to track down the exact dates and stuff. But this one, he's saying Diana Ross was at a show that they performed on, okay? And so I know the history of that. I believe that this is the show that they played this show, and Bobby Taylor and the Vancouvers were there, and they won this talent show. See, it's tricky when you actually get into it because there's a lot of history. But because of that show, they got to play a gig at the Regal Theater in Chicago, the one that Gladys Knight was just talking about, right?
Oh, wow.
So they got to play a show at the Regal, and then that's the known history where Bobby Taylor connects with the Jackson 5, where Bobby Taylor says, I saw the Jackson 5 and I started working them, right? But right here, the real history is that other show that Bobby Taylor and the Vancouvers were at that show too. But the other person is Diana Ross is at the show. And not only is she at the show, she comes back and talks to Michael. And they're in Gary, Indiana. This is in Gary, Indiana. That's what I'm saying. There's a lot more to this story than what the people know. And for some reason, I can't get the fans who claim to be Michael Jackson fans. It's like, well, if you're a Michael Jackson fan, you sure as hell should be interested in the real history of what happened with the Jackson 5, right? So this is Michael telling you Diana Ross was in Gary, Indiana. She spoke to him in Gary, Indiana 3 weeks prior to them starting to record in Motown. This is before they went to Motown. This is before they went to this. See, what happened is that show that he's talking about right there, that led them to go into the Regal Theater there in Chicago, where that's where the known story of Bobby Taylor. But I've actually tracked this down, and I found out that Bobby Taylor was at that show too. Bobby Taylor and the Vancouvers were there with them. I've got proof of that. So there's way more history to this stuff and what's actually going on. But so Diana Ross was in Gary, Indiana with them. Then the Jacksons signed to Motown, they moved to Los Angeles and move into Diana Ross's house. Their first album comes out, Diana Ross presents the Jackson 5. They do like the Ed Sullivan show, they do the Diana Ross special, the Jackson 5 are performing. They're totally lined up in connection. And Michael tells you that when they're living there in Diana Ross's house, Diana Ross would take him out alone. Just the two of them would go out alone, right? Yeah. And then so it's like one of these things too. If Joe Jackson didn't like Diana Ross, why is he allowing her to take Michael out with just the two of them? And Michael said it was over a period over a year and a half. They'd go out almost every day. This is a long-term thing. It's not like she just took him. Jim, okay, hold on. It's not like she took him out here and there and stuff, or that, she would take a few of the kids at a time to get to know him. It wasn't like that. She was specifically taking out Michael alone because she's trying to regain the connection because she had abandoned him. So that shows clearly that there's a connection between the two of them, that those two are connected much more than what people know about. And so it goes way, way beyond, it keeps going all through their life and stuff. There's massive connection. So this is Diana Ross. Okay, Jim, quiet, hold on. This is Diana Ross. She's doing an HBO special. This is in 1989. Okay, so this is pretty close to right after the Bad album is released, and on the Bad album has the song Dirty Diana. Okay, so it's a thing with calling Diana Ross. Jim, quiet. Shh. Okay, so Michael Jackson, think about the history of like what they're talking about. Like he was just telling you, Diana Ross came backstage. She was in Gary, Indiana, 3 weeks before the recording with Motown, right? Then Diana Ross presents the Jackson 5. They lived in Diana Ross's house. What could have happened that was so dramatic that Michael Jackson would actually write a song called Dirty Diana about Diana Ross? But there's more to it because it's not being taken in a negative way, because Diana embraces the song. She's not offended that Michael called her dirty. And Jim, see, this is what I got. I can't make videos and stuff. The people always like, I got all these bozos out here. They don't do anything in real life. They do nothing. You know, I have freaking serious issues of what I have to deal with and stuff, and I'm not a YouTuber and stuff, right? I'm a person doing an investigation and stuff, reporting on the investigation of what I've done, and show you my work and stuff. But my real job is here. My dad's right here with me. We just got done eating and stuff, and so that's what happened. Once we've done eating, this is the afternoon, and he feels good, right? He's all awake. He's feeling good, and when he's like this, I can't get him to shut up. But this is one of the times where I'm awake right now too, and I have a few hours until we eat our next meal. So right now is like, I make a lot of videos at this time, but when I'm doing it, he's also feeling good, and he talks over my videos. I can't stop that, right? So it's just weird shit of what I have to deal with, and I get yelled at by the fans for doing actual real Michael Jackson investigation, because I'm doing real investigation. I'm not just following the stories of what Michael's telling me. The people, they think they do Michael Jackson stories, and all they do is play, Michael Jackson said this, and they completely 100% follow along with that. No, I'm explaining the bigger picture of the whole thing of what's going on, and the fans yell at me for that. They freaking thumbs down my video. They attack my work. They attack my investigation. That's why I clearly state they're not real fans. They can't be possibly real fans if you're not interested in the work of what I'm showing you, because this is evidence. This is what real fucking investigation and evidence looks like. You see any of these other bozos doing anything even close to what I'm doing? Never. Nothing. They sit up there and, this is my favorite song. They think if you want to talk about Michael Jackson, they think, what's that conversation? Well, what was your favorite song? What was your favorite album? What was your favorite outfit he wore? They think that that's a conversation of talking about Michael Jackson. It's like, you guys are fake, stupid, loser morons in your real life. You got nothing to do better except freaking live off the glory of somebody else's glory. And you don't want to take down from his glory because you think that makes you better than what you are. You're not. You're a fucking loser. You've always been a fucking loser in your life. That's why you can't deal with any of the reality of what I'm telling you, because it exposes to yourself that you're all fucking losers. All right, get back in the train of thought. So, Michael Jackson and Diana Ross had a great relationship. If Michael Jackson, first of all, you got to understand that he doesn't want to talk bad about a woman, especially a black woman who's got a freaking amazing career in the music industry. She's a big, giant freaking star. Not only is she a giant star, she was personally right there, and she affected Michael Jackson's life. Like it said, and the thing that Diana took Michael out and taught him about the ways of the world, took him to museums and trained him in art. But for some reason now, Michael's calling that woman Dirty Diana. And then this woman, this Dirty Diana woman, if she had done something so bad that had justified her being called Dirty Diana, well then she would not have ended up in Michael Jackson's will as a guardian to Michael Jackson's children. But she did. Who's in Michael Jackson's will? He gives everything to his children, gives guardianship to Catherine. If Catherine can't fulfill the obligation, then Diana Ross got the guardianship to his children. That woman must not be so dirty to Michael Jackson, but for some reason, he wrote a song called Dirty Diana. And it's clearly about Diana Ross, because here's Diana Ross. She's embracing the song herself she's letting the world know. And this is the kind of things that Diana Ross would do stuff like this. She does this, and she's clearly telling the people that Dirty Diana Ross song's about me. She's not telling you what it's actually about, but she's connecting herself to that song to let you know that that song is about her. This is the kind of stuff that Joe Jackson didn't like. This is why Joe Jackson would have been saying so much, fuck that bitch Diana Ross. That's why that lady proclaims it was so big in her head that Joe did not like Diana Ross. Why didn't he like Diana Ross? Because she was gonna blow it for all of them. She was telling the truth. Like went back and done the investigation, and what happens is what you find is Diana Ross was telling. She was telling the people, Michael's my kid. He's my child. He's my son. That's my baby. She was telling all kinds of shit. That's why Joe's like, you dumb bitch, you're gonna ruin it for everybody. But it wasn't gonna really ruin it. Diana is a big star. Smokey's a big star. Motown's a big star. But the Jacksons, they really don't got any fucking talent. The only talent they've got is that they've got Michael in the fucking house. And if you remove Michael from the house, then everybody gets to see the truth about the Jacksons, that they don't got any fucking talent.
Oh, yeah.
So here, listen to this. Dirty Diana. And then it'll change up a little. But that's Dirty Diana. See, so that's how she starts. She starts her Diana Ross World Tour in 1989, which is right after the Bad album comes out, right? How does she start her HBO World Tour special? She does it with a different version of the song Dirty Diana. That's what she's playing there, is Dirty Diana. She did all kinds of shit like this, but the fans, they don't care. They just want to say, oh, I like Michael's sparkly jacket. Oh, I like this song. You don't even know what the fucking song is about. You don't care about Michael Jackson's life. You don't actually care about his artwork. You care about nothing. And then you got the fucking nerve to attack me and fucking denounce my work because you're so fucking pathetic as the fake Michael Jackson fans you are. All of you fucking losers. I could go down the Michael Jackson page right now and all I'll see is fake loser Michael Jackson thieving scum.